I love motorcycling, and I try to express that here on MCrider. If you want to learn to become a better motorcyclist the right way, I have videos to build your riding skills, I have videos to build your road strategy, and I have videos that focus just on the pure joy of riding a motorcycle. Well, this week's video will be none of those three. This week we'll look at 3 very common ways that you can kill yourself on a motorcycle. Hey, my name's Kevin. I release a weekly video here on MCrider focused on road skills or road strategy to help you become a better rider. Hit the subscribe button and that bell icon to get notified of all new videos. At the end of this video, head over to MCrider.com and you can watch every video that MCrider has ever released. Take a look at this photo. Let's see how much of a gambler you are. Let's say you just won $1 million. $1 million would make a huge difference in most everyone's life. But how many of you would be willing to just bet $100 of your newly won $1 million that the road around this corner is clear, that there's no obstacles in the road? That sounds like a pretty safe bet, right? Just $100 of your $1 million. But what if I promised to give you $10 million more if you're correct? If I did that, taking this bet would be a no-brainer. You could win $10 million more dollars, and even if you were wrong, you'd still only lose $100 of the $1 million you've already got. Well, now let's reverse that bet. Would you be willing to bet your $1 million for a chance to win $100 more dollars? And if you're wrong, not only would you lose your million, but you'd owe me another $10 million. Well, of course not. But that's what we do every time that we override our brakes on a motorcycle and head into a blind corner, not knowing what's on the other side of the corner. We risk everything we have, our life, that the road ahead is clear. Overriding the brakes, more specifically, is riding a motorcycle at a speed in which we can't get the motorcycle to a stop in a distance that we can clearly see up the road. Here's a diagram that explains it. If we're riding at a speed that will take us 100 feet to get the motorcycle to a stop, but we can only see 60 feet up the road, we're overriding the brakes. But riders do this all the time out on a country road. The curve ahead says it's a 35 mile per hour curve, and we ride headlong into it at 70 miles an hour because we're a good rider. And even though we can't see fully through the corner, and even though that we're riding at a speed in which there's no way we could get the motorcycle to a stop if there's something that's actually in the road. We break this rule when we head into an intersection with an obstructed visibility at full speed because we have the right-of-way and the lights just turn yellow. All it takes is one other driver who thinks they have the right-of-way, and we end up having a really bad day. So to ride within this rule, we should always be traveling at a speed that allows us to come to a complete stop in the distance that we can clearly see up the road. If you can see 100 feet up the road, but you're traveling at a speed that will take you 130 feet to come to a stop, you're gambling everything you own for the chance to win that last 30 feet. You may win that bet most of the time, but eventually the odds are going to catch up with you. And I love MotoGP. In fact, we were planning our first ever large-scale MCrider meetup at the MotoGP races in Austin, Texas this year until Corona came along and spoiled all our fun. I was at the first ever race in Austin a few years ago when Marc Marquez won his first ever race. In fact, this is some video I shot from the stands at that race back in 2013. That's Marquez there in second place at this time, but he would go on to take this win. He's since gone on to win world titles in the Premier class in 2013, 14, 16, 17, 18, and 19. You start to see a pattern here. He's good. The sport of MotoGP is dangerous. Let's not pretend that it's not. But there are several things that make it safer, aside from the riders wearing the best gear that money can buy. They have amazing skill on their motorcycle, but there's at least one other thing that really benefits them on the track. Everyone on the track is riding at the same relative speed. Well, everybody but Marquez, that is. He's going a little faster than everybody else. Speed differential is a huge safety factor out on the street. Every time you ride through traffic going 40 or 50 miles per hour faster than all the other cars around you, your threat greatly increases. So let's say you're approaching an intersection and all the other lanes of traffic get stopped at the red light. The light turns green before you get there, so you fly through that intersection going 40 miles per hour faster than any other vehicle in the intersection. Or on a multi-lane road with cars backed up. Just because you have an open lane doesn't mean that it's wise to proceed through that traffic 40 or 50 miles per hour faster than the traffic stopped on the road. Speed differential is not something that MotoGP riders have to deal with, not to mention cars turning left in front of them, trucks crossing the track at a 90-degree angle, or distracted drivers. But speed differential is a real threat and a real killer for riders out on the road. But speed differential cuts both ways. You don't want to be the fastest vehicle on the road by 40 miles per hour, and you don't want to be the slowest out there either. Riding too slow out of fear in fast-moving traffic is almost as dangerous as flying through it. You want to ride at a speed that you're moving at the same relative speed of all the other vehicles around you. Too fast and too slow, and you increase the odds of being involved in a crash. So let's go into our final motorcycle threat with a real-world story. Several years ago, my wife, my daughters, and I had spent a weekend camping at a little campsite here in North Texas. At the end of a great weekend, we packed up from the campsite. We had everything loaded into the back of the truck, and we were maybe 5 minutes out of the campsite. We come into this small North Texas town. It was a Sunday morning, about 11 a.m. or so. I was approaching a four-way stop on the main road through town when I saw a motorcycle approaching the stop out of the corner of my eye. Before even turning my head to look in the direction of the motorcycle, I remember saying out loud the words, "Ooh, wobbly," from nothing more than seeing the rider out of the corner of my eye stopping at the stop sign. That's an old riding instructor trick. We've got eyes in the back of our head, and if somebody makes a mistake on a motorcycle, we pick it up pretty quick. Well, I came to a stop and I waited to let the rider in front of me go. This rider was on an older Japanese-made cruiser. He had jeans, t-shirt, no helmet. He appeared to be in his mid-30s. So he turned right in front of me at the stop sign, and I turned following up behind him. The rider approached the next stop sign and failed to put either foot down as he stopped the motorcycle and rolled over onto his side in the middle of the street with the motorcycle trapping him underneath. I told my wife, I think he's drunk. I turned the hazards on, put the truck in park, and I approached the rider. Now, I've helped several new riders who fall over in a parking lot while training, but rarely because they forgot to put their feet down when they come to a stop. The motorcycle was still running. I hit the kill switch. I turned the key off in the ignition. I pulled the key out and I put the key in my pocket. I lifted the motorcycle upright while I was talking to the rider to make sure he was okay. He had a few fresh scratches from this incident, and he had scratches all over his face, his head, and his arms from other life challenges. The rider got up and we started talking. It was clear that he was intoxicated. So here I am in the middle of the street talking with this rider. My wife and girls are in the truck behind watching what is unfolding. And I told him that he crashed in front of the right guy because I was a motorcycle safety instructor. He was very interested in the fact that I was a motorcycle instructor, and he asked me where I taught at and if he could come take a class with me. And I said, "Sure, you're welcome anytime to come on out." So we stood there in the middle of the road for a few minutes talking about motorcycles, and it was kind of funny that he had just crashed, got up off the pavement, and was talking to me like we were old buddies and we were talking about motorcycles. And I was happy to play along as he wasn't trying to ride this motorcycle out on the public streets. After a few minutes, he started feeling in his pockets for his keys. He looked back where the motorcycle fell over for his keys. He walked over to the motorcycle, looked in the ignition for his keys. And finally, he started getting real upset that he couldn't find the keys to his motorcycle. And that's when I said, oh, hey, I've got them right here. Let's find you a ride home, and then I'll give them back to you. Well, suddenly we weren't friends anymore. He asked for the keys. I said, I'll give them to you in a minute. He started getting upset, and I was trying to determine if I was going to have to fight this guy with my wife and girls watching from the truck behind me. Well, just then someone pulled up in the truck and called this guy out by name. Out gets a older guy. He looks like he's a possible rancher. He's well-dressed, driving a nice truck. He walks over and tells my new friend and possible sparring partner to go have a seat next to his motorcycle. This rancher guy and I start talking, and I tell him what happened, and he's not really surprised because he knows the guy and knows of his problems. The rancher's headed to Waco, Texas for the day, and he thinks he can get him to go for a road trip with him to Waco, and it will give this guy a chance to sober up. On a side note, the rancher tells me that he's a Christian, and he's been looking for a way to have some time to talk with this guy anyway and help him get his life straightened out. And a trip to Waco will give him plenty of time to do that. So we walk back over to my friend sitting next to his motorcycle, and the rancher makes him the offer. At first he agrees happily, and they're making plans to stop at a quick trip for a soda and then a road trip to Waco, which is about a 3-hour ride. Then he starts to wonder what he's going to do with his motorcycle while he's gone. And his tune quickly changes, and he's ready to fight again and to keep from having to leave his motorcycle there on the side of the road. I remind him that I'm an experienced rider, and I can follow him in the truck and ride the motorcycle somewhere where it will be safe, and then I'll give him the keys back if he agrees to go with our friend to Waco. So that's what we do. I walk back to my truck. I tell my wife my geniusly crafted plan, and we're going to make a short tour and to follow me on the motorcycle. So I mount up on this rugged-looking Japanese cruiser that really looks like it's got more miles on it than the guy who just crashed it. And I mean, this bike was sketchy. I said a little prayer, I crank it up, and off we go. And as I'm riding this sketchy Suzuki Cruiser up the road, I began to question my own intelligence in this situation. But we got the bike a few miles up the road to an auto garage where he knew the owner. I gave the keys back to the owner, and off they went to Waco. And I've often thought about this experience, and I hope my friend has found the peace that he was in obvious need of. The guy I met this day had a lot of problems. Alcohol was one of them, and definitely riding in the condition that he was in at that time could have led to his death, and I still believe that it would have. You see that last stop where he fell over was the stop sign that leads directly to the highway. I feel pretty confident that if he had not crashed in front of me that day, he wouldn't have made his destination. But not all stories of riders impaired are such hard luck stories. Every weekend, doctors, bankers, lawyers, and the guy who works at the factory has a few drinks with their friends, and they mount up on a motorcycle. 50% of motorcycle fatalities have alcohol involved. Motorcycles and alcohol are sadly a part of the same culture. Many dealerships have bike nights with free beer. Go to a biker rally, and alcohol and riding are mixed and celebrated. I have no problem with having a drink or two at the end of the day, but you always have to separate the two. It's simply not worth the increased risk. It's common sense, but it's still a contributing factor in 50% of all motorcycle fatalities. It's simple. Don't drink and ride. If you like this video, consider becoming a member. Go to mcrider.com/support and learn about becoming a member at MCrider. You'll get access to more training and an active forum of experienced riders and coaches from all over the world to help you improve your skills on a motorcycle or to just talk bikes. We have a great group of riders on the forums. It really is the best part of MCrider, so I hope to see you on the forums. Till next week, This is Kevin with MC Rider, and I'll see you on the road.